Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. We're glad you're here. I'm Kevin McDonald, your host for this grand adventure, and I thank you for joining us. You see, our mission is to create a positive, personal connection to all things with courage and love. We invite terrific guests, interesting topics, and great conversation, all in a fun, entertaining way. And we always manage to learn something, too. So I hope you will stay right where you are for this episode of Positive Talk Radio.
Can't quite hear.
Now you can.
There we go.
My mic was muted, unfortunately, and I'm sorry.
All good.
But Aundrea DeMille is an author. I don't know when you have time for all this, but you're an author. You also are in real estate. You also have 5 boys, and you are a speaker, and you go around and you talk about things that are very difficult for a lot of us to get our heads around, and that is race relations, our unbiased or our biased prejudices, and things like that a lot of us don't get. So explain to me the number one about the book. You wrote the book for what reasons?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on the show.
Oh,
I
you're
really
so welcome.
appreciate it.
By the way, you have a beautiful smile. Does
Thank
anybody ever
you.
tell you that?
I have heard that a couple
I
times.
figured you might.
Yeah, I have. Thank you so much. So the book really came about out of a need to be more positive and bring people together and get away from all of the hate and the anger and the social unrest that was happening in the world. So, when George Floyd was murdered, my 12-year-old at the time just was crying every day, literally for 5 days. He would come to me at some point in the day crying, just kind of, "I don't understand what happened," and, it was the first time in his life where he remembered, something like this happening, and watching that was really difficult for me, um, and so I made this video on Face and put it on Facebook about what it's like raising Black boys in America and some of the conversations that I have to have with my boys to keep them safe. Things like when you walk into the grocery store, take your hands out of your pocket, take your hoodie off of your head, keep your hands where people can see. And when you leave the store, have the receipt in your hand. Always put something in a bag. When you're at a party with your friends and the police show up, do not run. I don't care that all your friends are running. You stand still. You know, always keep your it's just little things like that I would, and it got about 20,000 views and got the attention of our Lieutenant Governor, Spencer Cox, at the time. So Lieutenant Governor Cox, wanted to come and chat about this video and my lived experience in the state in Utah. So I said yes, and they came over during his campaign. He was running for governor, and his running mate, now Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson was there as well as our First Lady, Abby Cox. And I just really started sharing a lot of the stories that I've gone through personally, when I have been on the other end of racial injustice or racial biases. And I remember telling them, because he's a politician, and I remember saying, I'm not an idiot. I'm sure you have an angle, but so do I. So if you're going to help spread this positive message, by all means, use me in any way you can. And he was like, no, I don't have an angle. We really just wanted to come and hear some of these stories and learn how we can be better as an administration. And I thought that was beautiful. So I shared these stories with them. We cried, we hugged, we developed a bond that's stronger than ever. And I went on to later learn how my stories impacted. He won the election, but so now he's our governor. But I learned how these stories impacted our governor, our lieutenant governor, their families, even our administration. I was commissioned to be on Project Gateway to help with equitable policy suggestions for women, the LGBT plus Q community, and minorities. And I just thought, wow, if these stories could impact our governor and our administration in the state of Utah, what could they do for the world? So I compiled them all in a book, and I was actually working on like a women's empowerment business book when this happened. Because as you mentioned, I am a business owner in real estate. I own a real estate marketing company. So I was working on a book for that on, how to chase your dreams and climb the ladder and, create the life that you want when all of this was going on. And I went back to my mentor, David Ibarra, who sits on the board for the Think and Grow Rich Foundation. And I said, David, I feel like I need to pivot and share these stories. And he's like, absolutely do it. Follow your gut. So that's kind of how it all came together. It just happened organically, with naturally bringing people together and spreading positivity through storytelling and empathy and real love and genuine connection behind race relations. And that's kind of how it came to life.
That's is a beautiful story.
Yeah.
That really is. And you are a very, very positive person.
Thank you.
And I wanna just point out though, I saw when Mr. Floyd was killed, and
Mm,
I watched the entire video,
yeah.
and it was the lack of humanity was
Right.
just astounded me. It was like, I can't believe that in America today that that can possibly even happen. And because I thought we were better than that. Well, apparently we're not. Now, on the positive side, the gentleman that did perpetrate it was convicted of a
Right.
crime and
Right.
is going to spend, if not the entire rest of his life, the most of the rest of his life in jail.
Right.
Um, and his life may not be that long if he's in jail. But in any event, that it's great that you are doing what you're doing. And when you were talking about educating your boys,
Yes.
um, I have a great friend who is married to an African American gentleman. She's a white lady,
Mhm.
and they have a couple of mixed race kids. And the, she was telling me the things that she has to do with her boys to make sure. Matter of fact, she's got her oldest boy who's now driving. He has her number on speed dial with the instructions. If you are ever stopped, first thing you do is you speed dial me, put your phone down, put your hands on the steering wheel, and get your paperwork in order and stuff, so that I know that I need to come find you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that is very real. In fact, when all of that happened, the oldest of our boys, so as we mentioned, we have 5. The older 2 are Black, the younger 3 are mixed, and my husband is now white. So I tell people we have 3 baby daddies and 2 baby mamas. We're a very modern Brady Bunch kind of family.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you
You
that,
know?
and that is, I believe that moving forward, that is going to be the American family. We are going to be a blended country, and as well, we should be, for heaven's
Absolutely.
sakes,
Yeah.
because we are, at the end of the day, all of us, either by choice or not, are no, immigrants. That's it.
Yes.
We're immigrants here,
Right. Right.
Unless you're Native American, and then that goes back, thousands of
Right.
years, but
That's what I was gonna say, unless you're native and indigenous, yeah, we are all immigrants here, we've all or been brought over. But yeah, that conversation is very real. Our oldest boy was just getting his license when all of that happened, and we had been having the talk with him about what to do when you get pulled over, and he and the 12-year-old, you know how teenagers are, they, "Can we go to the store and get this, and can we go and get that, and can we just joyride?" And we live in a very predominantly white, affluent neighborhood, and I have dreads, and the older 2 black boys, have dreads, and my mixed babies are asking about it already, so they'll probably end up with some as well. But just from our appearance, it looks like we don't live there. And so we had to have those conversations of, if you are stopped by a police officer or a neighbor who thinks you don't live here, this is what you do. Things like that, to keep them safe. So yeah.
funny story for you. Um, on my independence report, I interviewed 5 young African American men,
Mhm.
and they were all in their late teens, early 20s, and they were telling me some of the stories that they'd had of being pulled over, and the fear that they feel because they never know what's going to happen. And so I related the story. I said, I'm an old white guy, and even when I was a young white guy, it never even entered my consciousness. And one time I was going down a particular road, and the speed limit changed from 45 to 35, and I thought it changed in a different place. Well, I got pulled over by a motorcycle cop. I
Mhm.
was convinced that I was not speeding, and so I jumped out of my car. And at this point, all see, they did the same thing you're doing. All the guys said, "You did what?"
Right?
I said, "Well, I jumped out of my car and started walking towards the cop."
Oh my gosh.
And saying I wasn't speeding, and he didn't bat an eye, he didn't reach for his gun, he didn't do any of the things that if I was a young African American man and did the same thing,
Right.
I would have ended up with my face in the dirt, and with a gun in my face. And it's so sad that in our country we live that way. And I'm so proud of you for taking the steps to help us get through some of the obvious racism, and also the unobvious racism that
Right.
and the racist and the bias that we have.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well,
tell
and
us
I
about the
share
bias.
I share I share a story like that in the book as well, and this one, Kevin, I haven't shared in any other interview, so this is an exclusive for you.
Oh, cool.
But along those same lines, when I was a teenager, I was about 17 years old, senior in high school, and we just moved to this brand new town where my parents were retiring. My dad was an Army officer who just retired from Fort Benning and settled in this tiny, tiny town, right? Literally, it's a town, not a city, one stoplight, right outside of Atlanta. And lots of Confederate flags everywhere, kind of small town thing. And so my friend and I were at a park sitting on his car, just chatting about, how we can't wait to get out and get on our own and go to college. And he was a student athlete, I was a student athlete, and we were just friends, just literally sitting on the hood of the car chatting. And we heard a car pull up behind us. So we looked over our shoulders to see that it was indeed a police officer. So we hopped off of the hood of the car just to kind of see what was going on, because he clearly pulled right behind us as if to block us in. And without a word, he takes my friend, slams him on his police car, pins his hands behind his back, and is very aggressively searching him, pushed his head down onto the hood of the car, used his body weight to spread the legs of my friend, and is just violently searching him everywhere. And my friend looks at me with just tears and fear in his eyes, and he's kinda shaking his head a little to the side like this is really messed up? And I'm just watching, and all I can think is this real? Like, did we do something wrong? Are we getting arrested? Am I gonna die?" Like, these are the things going through my head. So when the police officer doesn't find anything, he jerks my friend off the car, and then, still kind of holding both of his arms behind his back, looks at me, and I was just in a very like a little tank top and some tight pants where you couldn't smuggle anything in. So he just had me turn my there's no hiding anything in that outfit basically. He had me turn my pockets inside out, and when he saw that we had nothing on us, keep in mind, he never said a word, like, literally just searched us without warrant, without and aggressively. When he found nothing on my friend or myself on our persons, he said, "The park is closing at dark, and y'all should get ready to go," because the sun was setting, but it wasn't quite dark yet. And then he left. And I share that story with people because I in the book, and I say, "Have you ever experienced something like that? Why do you think he did that to us? We're just 2 teenagers sitting on top of a car chatting." Um, and do you think he was taught this in the police force, or was it just something he learned in while he was, growing up, or things he saw on television from the show Cops? Like, you just never know why. These are the things going through my head as a teenager. But I ask all these questions and share that story just for people to kind of wake up to our own biases and other people's lived experiences of, these things still happen. They still happen. That was never reported on the news. I never even told my parents until I was an adult. Probably really in the last couple of years did they learn that story. They didn't even learn it when I was in my 20s. And I'm almost 40. And these things happen. And so I like to share those stories to help us all wake up to our biases. Now, that one in that case is very obvious, but we all tend to have biases that are sometimes subtle. And they come from stereotypical anecdotal situations. As I mentioned, I was doing some work for the governor, and our Governor Herbert was on his way out of office, and he issued this diversity compact. So I was invited to come to the signing because of the work that I've been doing with the state. So it was early December, and we were getting our first snowfall of the year. I'm in Utah, and it was beautiful. The who's who of Utah are there, very affluent, powerful politicians, business owners. People are dressed to the nine, and but it's a beautiful sea of diverse representation. There was Pacific Islanders in their native clothing, Asians there, people from the queer community, men, women, young, old, black, brown, like everything under the rainbow is beautiful. And I saw movement out of the right corner of my eye. And so this was just still in the middle of the pandemic. Well, middle end of 2020. And so we were doing it on the Capitol steps outside, and the snow had just started to fall softly. And I caught movement out of the right corner of my eye. And I noticed that, people have been walking their dogs on the lawn, and I didn't think too much of it. So this person started to approach the Capitol steps. And as he got closer, I could make him out. And he was a young Hispanic gentleman with no shirt on. He was covered in tattoos, and his pants were slightly below his belt line. And I looked at him, and my first feeling, Kevin, was fear. My first thought was, what is he doing here? Is he here to start trouble? And it is embarrassing. Every time I tell this story, it never gets less humiliating that here I am, the epitome of equity, representation, equality. We're signing this diversity compact. All these people around, we're literally crying tears of joy of everyone coming together. And I am showing a subtle racial bias towards a Hispanic person because of how he looks. Now, I am happy to say that in that moment, I said, Aundrea, stop it. Look at him. And I made myself look him in the eye. And he was smiling ear to ear, Kevin. He was so happy. And I immediately tapped into his frequency and was able to change my feelings from fear into love, inclusion, and, joy, and reprogram my subconscious mind in that moment. And he was just happy to witness what was happening. And later I reflected and I asked myself, why did I feel fear? Why did I say in my mind, is he here to start trouble? What is he doing here? And I can say it's because of the biases, the racial biases in this instance, both gender and racial, because we do react differently to men that we would women, right? We just do inherently. So the gender and racial biases behind what a bad guy looks like, a is what has been planted into my subconscious mind. I had seen what a thug looks like on television, in movies. I read about it in books. The people in the tattoos, how to, stay away from people who look like that. And that's where my fear came from. It came from stereotypical anecdotal stories and not from personal experience because I never experienced anything negative with the Hispanic gentleman, yet along a person in tattoos, like either one of those. Never. So I had no real lived experience to fear him, yet here I was feeling fear. And
See,
so,
I would
yeah,
have been more concerned about the fact that he was shirtless
I know.
and it was snowing. It's
Ain't that the truth, right? The question should have been, "Hey, dude, where's your coat?"
exactly. Because, and all about, um, I learned all about what you're talking about because I drove a Seattle Metro bus for 12 years.
Right.
And when you drive a bus and you have no earthly idea who's going to get on your bus or when they're going to get and what they're about and who they are and all that kind of stuff, it's really easy. It's incredibly easy to form biases
Mm,
around the way people look. They don't pay their fare,
right.
or whatever it is, and it takes a moment or two for you to recognize that they're human beings just like you are,
Absolutely.
and that we are all connected and that we're all one, and to take a positive attitude rather than a negative attitude.
Absolutely. And you know what, Kevin? If we all just pause for a moment, like I did when I said, "Andrea, stop it," that's how we can shift into that positive energy, right? By just pausing for a moment and recognizing, you know, this human being in front of us and their lived experience. That's all it takes to kind of flip that switch. And the more and more we do that, then the more we'll start to respond in a positive way on autopilot rather than in a negative way. We'll lead from a place of inclusion and equity and love and empathy rather than leading with fear if we keep doing it. But many of us, just let the moment pass and don't think anything of it. We I think I was watching an Ed Milet video earlier this week, and someone can find it and directly quote me, but to paraphrase, I want to say he mentioned that we have about 900,000 thoughts a day, something like that.
A lot.
And a lot, yeah, like a whole lot. Okay. How about just say millions? Let's just round it up. Okay. We have a million thoughts running through our mind every day. And most of those thoughts are on autopilot. And we actually only can control about 9% of our thoughts that enter our mind every day. And so it's the same with our biases. Sometimes we are just, we're walking down the street and a thought will enter our mind when we see someone or when we're driving, or like you said, when someone gets on your bus or comes in your office, and we immediately create a snap judgment about this person. And then we just let that thought be fleeting and it leaves us rather than pausing and turning it into a positive interaction and positive feelings.
Exactly, and there's some people that haven't figured that part out yet, and
Right.
so that's why in your neighborhood, as an example,
Hmm.
you've got 5 teenage boys. You're gonna have 5 drivers at one
Right.
point, and they're gonna be going through an affluent, predominantly white neighborhood, and somebody somewhere is going to say, because it is an African American man driving a nice car, that he either stole a car or he's up to no good or something like that, and we have to change that
We do.
as a society,
Yeah,
or we're never gonna get anywhere.
absolutely. We do, and it starts by doing things like with my book, it's called "Is It Racism? How to Heal the Human Divide," and just by reading that book, it teaches you how to reprogram your subconscious mind for more positive, inclusive feelings when we see people. And you're right, Kevin, one day that will happen, and it has already happened to family members that visit us. Um, when we were in Georgia, we again in a more predominantly white affluent area, it's a golf cart community, and our cousins were driving the golf cart on the cart path. There's not many rules except stay on the cart path. You can't speed. Like, it's impossible to speed in a golf cart, you know
Right?
and it's not illegal to have your music on the golf cart, right? Like, it's not a and so but my cousins got pulled over because the police officer assumed that they don't live here, and our cousins had to tell them, "Hey, this is my uncle. I'm visiting my uncle from Miami. He lives right here. We're just, enjoying the community." But when my white friends and family members come over, as I mentioned, my husband's white, they get on the golf cart no problem, and they've never once gotten pulled over by the police or had a
Nope.
neighbor stop them and inquire.
Nope. And
So,
and the and Andrea, I would love to be able to tell you that throughout the country that we are all kind of the same and stuff, but that's just not so.
yeah.
I live I worked for a company out of Arkansas,
Mhm.
and they called the West Coast the left coast. Um, because
Oh, jeez.
we're a lot more progressive than they are in our Arkansas. Real quick story, and this is when I first took the job there. I was at Fort Smith, and Fort Smith is the home of the hanging judge from the 1800s. So it's a very historical place, and there's a lot of older buildings and stuff. And so one of the sales guys and I were going through downtown, and we were stopped at a stoplight, and it was right by where the hanging judge courthouse is. And I was looking around and looking at things, and I hear the guy say next to me, "That's just a goddamn shame." And I said, and I looked around, and it was like, "What?" And
Yeah.
there was a mixed couple walking across the street in the crosswalk in front
Mm.
of us. And it was like I was like, "Buddy, you need to really kinda get a life because that's just not appropriate."
Right.
And, it but in there in and it's an educational process.
Yeah.
It's also working together for us to all work together to understand. One of my favorite stories, I gotta tell this one real quick, is
Okay.
that I'm a Seattle Seahawk fan. So when you go to the Seattle Seahawks stadium, there are 65,000 people in the stadium, right?
Mhm.
Everybody is cheering on the Seahawks. White, black, gay, women, doesn't matter. Everybody's
Yeah.
cheering, they're high-fiving each other when everybody scores.
Right.
We're all together, we're all one because we're and at that moment, we're of the same tribe. We're all fans of the Seattle Seahawks. If we could capture that spirit
Mm.
and we are all one human family, then we'd have a shot at getting rid of some of this and having a much more positive attitude. But the problem is when everybody left the stadium, they reverted back to who they are, and they were off to the parking lot and you know
Right.
and and running into people, and some people were drunk and all that kind of stuff. So if we could just do that, and that's why your work is so important.
Thank
And
you.
what you're
Yeah, and what's great though is we can work towards being that all one tribe by taking little times to even help each other wake up to our own biases. Like when you were in that car and you're like, "Hey, buddy," and you said something, some people would sit there in silence and just let him continue to sit in his biases that people of different races should not be married or together. Um, but the fact that you spoke up and said something is important too. Part of it, in the book, we have what we call the mind model. And those are the steps that help us all to wake up to our biases and be more positive and to come together to create a better world. And so step one is waking up and realizing by checking our feelings what it is that we're experiencing. So that day on the Capitol steps, when I said, "Andrea, stop it," I was waking up and checking my feelings. And then when I made myself look him in the eye, that was step 2 to reprogram my subconscious mind. It was look at him, you know? Or it could be if you're in a room speaking up, or pulling someone aside. And then step 3 is being willing to be the pebble in the pond and change and help heal that human divide. And for me, it was changing my feelings in that moment from fear to one of more positivity and inclusion. And so if we follow that mind model, we can all help each other wake up to our own biases, which it also is reprogramming ours because we're having that conversation, you know? Just you and I today are reprogramming our subconscious mind for positive inclusion because you shared stories with me and I've shared stories with you, and we're both helping each other, It's beautiful. We just need to have more conversations.
If we could all just sit in a room, have a conversation, we would end up with a very positive outcome.
Absolutely.
I'm I'm pretty sure, unless there's somebody that is just uh, and there's going to be there are fringe people everywhere, but I think that by and large that we can change our society, and we really do need to change our society into be a more positive, more inclusive, because quite frankly, and you talk about this with women a lot too,
Mhm.
because the women have got the same problem. It's a little bit different, but they still have got a problem of they don't take care of themselves very well. And I was watching your video. I love your 5 points of selfishness
Oh,
that
thank you.
that you brought on there. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's really important that women get the fact that they're important too.
Absolutely, yes, because it's the same thing. We can use that mind model to apply it to gender equality as well. And so, what you're referring to, Kevin, is I was interviewed by Authority Magazine, and they were asking, what are some of the things that you do as a powerful woman to help with the work life love balance? And I said, be selfish. If a woman takes up yoga, people usually say, "Good job, way to go. You're taking care of your mental health and your body," and they applaud her, right? They don't call that selfish. But if a woman stays late and misses her son's soccer game to meet a deadline, most people would call that selfish and shame her. Oh, she should be there. Oh, she's putting work over her family. And it's time that we redefine what selfish is. And so some of the things that I like is for women to do is take your power back and realize that it's okay to take care of yourself first. Because if you take care of your mental health, you take care of your emotional health, your physical health first, then you can give your best self to your employer or your business. You can give your best self to your spouse or your partner. You can give your best self to your children and time block it accordingly. And so if you are a working parent, a working woman, time block it. Set aside 30 or 40 minutes when you put your phones down and you have a genuine conversation with your kids, or you put the phone down and we're going to watch a movie and there's not going to be any action, or we're going to go for a walk. And then once that's done, you can, move on to the next thing. And so what I've learned and that I want everyone, men and women, to understand is it's important to give more quality time than it is quantity. If you can only give your partner or this paper or your children 45 minutes of your time, then you make it the best damn 45 minutes you can possibly give. And then move on to the next, right? And then like to have no guilt. But there some of the other things that you mentioned in that video are being willing to push past the fear, that we have to be able to overcome our obstacles if we're going to come together and be more positive. Fear can be very tricky. It's just our brain, it's just a survival technique that our brain is telling us to keep us safe. That's all it is. So if we ignore and push past the fear, then we can be great. And then also, to remove the safety nets. You have to want it. As Napoleon Hill says, burn the bridges. And what that means is if you're going to go for a goal, you need to be persistent and not have a backup plan. You can't think, well, if I fail, my partner will help me. If I fail, my parents will bail me out. If I fail, my friends will help, or my grandma will send money. Don't have a backup plan. There's only one plan, and that's number one, whatever it is that you want to go after. And so, when we do things like that, just redefine what it means to be selfish, pushing past that fear, not having a backup plan, we can all help empower each other. We can empower women, and collectively help heal that human divide and reprogram our subconscious minds for more positivity and inclusion for sure.
It's very difficult, that last one, which is don't have a backup plan.
Yeah.
You mean I have to be all in? I that's hard for some folks.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard for a lot of people, and that's why there's only a few greats at the top. But then,
but
you
even
have great p Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just saying we also have great people that we don't hear about. There are amazing teachers who are at the top in their field that we would never know. So I wasn't making that statement as a status or celebratorial statement. I was just saying, be the best that you can with no backup. Okay, but go ahead.
Well, no, and I agree with you 100% because I don't know about you, but some of the people who've had the most profound influence in my life were either coaches or teachers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. The most influential, powerful people in my life were my coaches. Um, well, number 1, my dad, and number 2, my coaches and mentors. Yeah, for sure.
They taught me, how to behave, how to be a good teammate, how to how to have integrity.
Yes.
And all of that, and even more so, my dad was busy working. He was gone 6 days a week, and he didn't particularly wanna hear my line of baloney when he came home.
Yeah,
So, and so but coaches were invested in us, and so some of the best folks, that I've ever met were coaches. So if you're out there and you're considering coaching youth, do it. It's very rewarding, and you
absolutely.
can you can actually make a huge difference in a child's life, in a real positive way. So do that, or be a scoutmaster, or do something for the kids. Do something in a positive way,
Yeah.
that you can all bring everybody together. It really is important. And so you are a real estate person. You're an author. You're a mother of 5. What's next for you? The
What's
governorship?
R I have had a few people ask about that. What's next is leading more uncomfortable conversations. I do a lot of public speakings and trainings on the topic, teaching people how to use the mind model in their organizations and also in their professional and private life. So definitely a lot of that. And I'm working on a children's series. My 7-year-old, one of my mixed race kids, came home a few months ago and he said, "Mom, because you're black, you don't deserve to own a house or to buy property." And I said, "Oh, Axel, why would you say that?" And he said, "Well, your black skin reminds people of darkness and evilness, and people don't like darkness and evilness." And I literally cried on my bathroom floor for about 25 to 35 minutes. My sweet husband could not even, he had no idea what to do other than sit there and empathize with me. And he's like, "Do you want to call your dad?" I'm like, "Yeah," kind of thing. "Yeah, I need to talk to my dad. He's one of my best friends." Um, and so I just the next day I was like, we have to do a better job of spreading positive and equitable messages to our youth and to our children. Because here my own child is making a that's literally a racist comment. Not subtly racially biased. It's just a racist comment. My own child made a racist comment to me and has a racist belief that has been seeded and planted into his mind that has manifested consciously in his comment, and he hasn't learned that at home. He learned that outside of our home. We don't teach that.
That's a
Um,
frightening thing.
it's very frightening, and so I was like, we have to do better with our youth, and so now I'm working on a children's book and a children's series to help teach them how to be more positive and loving and inclusive, and, we mix in disabilities so that we understand, we treat people the same even if they have disabilities, whether they're a girl or a boy or black or brown, Asian, yellow, it doesn't matter. Um, and so that's what I'm working on next because I wanna help heal that human divide starting with our youth.
Everything starts with the youth.
Yeah, back to
Because
that, right?
Yeah, because they're gonna be around longer than we
Yeah,
are, and, as we continue to evolve as a species and continue to change, it's the youth that are going to continue to evolve us forward. Because, like, I have different views than a 95-year-old guy because he grew up in a different time, and the times are changing. The times they be a changing. I think Dylan said something about that, and Bob Dylan. And we have an obligation for our children. And being a bus driver, I saw an amazing amount of kids that were left to their own devices,
Mm,
and a lot of them just don't have any hope.
yeah,
And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to instill in our kids is, this is America, damn it. You can do
absolutely.
anything you want. If
America.
You're America, goddammit. You can be anything you wanna be. And it doesn't mean that a black child, the only way out for him is to become an athlete. He can be
Absolutely.
a scholar, he can do anything that he chooses to do, and we need, as a society, we need to support our children in that and present a real positive outlook for the future for everyone. And, you're taking the time and the effort to do that, and I applaud you greatly for it. It's just awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You are really good. By the way, we are talking with Aundrea DeMille, and she's got the book, which give us the title of the book.
Is it racism? How to heal the human divide.
And I love the part about how to heal the human divide
Yes.
because there is right now in this particular, I have to tell you another real quick story
Okay.
is that I recently changed the name of my show from My Independence Report, which I still run, but I've added Positive Talk Radio, which I did it way back in 2003 when we were in the middle of the Iraq War, and it was a different time, and there was a lot of hate, division, and fear back then. I'm getting an unbelievable positive response from Positive Talk Radio because people are tired of
Mm.
the negativity. They want positivity. They want to have a happy life. They want everybody to work together for us as a country, as a world to have a happy life and to be positive in everything that we do. And I feel it's changing. I really feel that we people like you, people like me are making a positive difference in the world. And so you go, girl. You got to keep going and doing what you're doing.
Yes, I plan to keep going, and I feel you, Kevin. I feel the winds are changing. It's kind of like, I'm from the South, and sometimes when you have pop-up storms, you can see the rain walk towards you as it gets closer and closer. And that's how I feel what's happening. Something big is coming. I can see it walking towards. I'm not sure what it is, but where I'm going to keep being positive, helping to heal that human divide, do my part. And I encourage everyone listening today to do the same. It can get very overwhelming with trying to change the world and, wanting more equality for women and more equal quality for all different races and cultures and, the LGBTQ community. Like the idea of those can get very exhausting. But what you can do is one, wake up and change your own feelings. And two, be that pebble in the pond. And which three will give the ripple effect. So you may not be able to change the world, but you can change your world. You can change your world, which in turn impacts your friends, your families, and your community. And if everybody did that, we damn sure can help heal the human divide.
And I have actual proof that you can do that. Um, when I was driving a bus, most of the time I drove a 60-foot bus, and that fits as many as 75 people on that bus. I could I could change the environment by my attitude as the driver. And if I would had a good attitude, then the bus things tended to go better because of the positive attitude and the energy that I was putting out. If I put out negative energy, the same thing would happen in reverse. And so we all have every day, and I implore everybody, whether you feel like you have no forum, no platform, no impact at all, you can still be nice to the cashier.
Absolutely.
You can still say hello to people. You can actually smile through your mask and show a light in your eyes that people can recognize, and it's you will be better off for it, and it'll make you feel a lot more powerful and a lot better about yourself and about the world around you. Don't you think?
Absolutely. 100% agree. It radiates. You tap into that frequency and just with the positive attitude can change the world. It goes back to that saying, if mama ain't happy, nobody happy, right? It's true. Just with a smile, you can help heal that human divide. Put that positive energy out. I love it. Yes.
Well, especially in some cultures, women have got a very, very important mom has got a very important place in the culture and in the family life. And that's true. And mommy ain't happy, nobody's gonna be happy here. So everybody works to make mommy happy.
Yep.
And I hope your kids do that, and I know your husband is very supportive of you as well.
Yes, very much so. Thank you, and I appreciate that.
So on a different time, what's the real estate market gonna do?
Oh my gosh. Right now, it's just going up and up and up, and at least in the state of Utah, we are not slowing down anytime soon. So, we're averaging about 17 to 19% um, increase in equity every year, which is probably double the national average. It's crazy.
Where is all this money coming from of all these folks that are able to pay, $500,000 for a house?
That it's a double-edged sword. It's people are coming in from out of state for sure, but then we all are also creating a ton of jobs. We just opened, I think, our second Amazon distribution here in the Salt Lake area. They are about to move the prison and put in more um, businesses and employment. And so we're definitely breeding jobs, but it is hard because you have younger families and even soldiers. We have Hill Air Force Base here that literally can't afford a $500,000 home. And so it's getting crazy. It's like a great and a really bad thing. It's like, okay, great, housing's going up and we're in a great economy. We have one of the best economies in the nation, but at the same time, everyone here can't quite afford it. So I know our administration's looking into things that they can maybe do to help close that gap, and we'll just see what's to come.
I really hope that you run for office one day.
Oh, you're sweet.
Oh, I think you would be
Thanks.
phenomenal,
Thank you.
and I think
Oh.
that your support would be broad and wide.
Thank you. Yeah, if that day ever comes, I will let you know.
You have to come back on my show, and we have to talk
Absolutely.
about it.
I absolutely will.
Absolutely. And so your book again is, and how does somebody get a hold of you, Andrea?
Yeah, the book again is It Racism? How to Heal the Human Divide. If you guys are interested in having me on a show or you need help with a speaking or training event, conference, consultation of any sorts, you can find me at thewakeupstories.com, where the book is also pre-selling. And you can follow me on Instagram at Andrea_D_. That's AUNDREA, Andrea. But yeah, also I have my own podcast show. And so it's called The Wake Up Stories as well, where everyone comes on from different genders, ethnicities, background, and we just discuss biases behind all of it. The people share their stories behind biases related to mental health, related to queerness, related to women, related to gender roles, religion, the whole nine. It's not just about race, it's about waking up to biases in every category to help heal that human divide and be more positive. So if anyone has a story they'd like to share, go to the Wake Up Stories and submit a proposal, and maybe we can get you on to share your story.
Do you have a slot for like an old fat white guy?
Always. Yeah, we should definitely do some collaboration and have you on.
That would be great fun. I would really enjoy it. So
Yeah, yeah.
you have, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you have the opportunity to book her for a speaking engagement, for to coach, to do any of the things that she does so well, you can do a whole lot worse. She's really good, and she's a delight to be around. So I want to thank you for being on the show today, and I really want to have you come on to KKNW to do that show as well.
Yeah, I would love to come back and help in any capacity, and thank you so much for your time, and thank you for having me on, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
You're really cool. Now, if you, oh, by the, oh, I almost forgot. I can't do that. Um, if there is anything, this is the time of the show when I step aside and I give you the opportunity to tell our audience, the ones that are listening now and the ones that are listening later, anything that's on your mind and in your heart.
Anything on my mind and in my heart. Um, it would definitely be take some time for you. Um, I To be very frank, people always say, "Well, how do you do it all?" No one can do it all. I had a really hard time last week. Um, I had 2 days that I had to cancel work and interviews and get my mental health together and literally disappear, turn my phone off, my TV, the radio, everything I turned off for a day and a half and just reconnected with myself and with the universe and with Mother Nature to stay centered and strong. And so I guess if there's anything that I'd like to just share, it's okay to take a moment to cry. It's okay to take a moment to take care of your mental health and recognize those signs and do it. Okay. Just do it. And it's okay if life is changing in a direction that you don't expect it. Just surrender to those feelings, let them flow through you, and you've got this.
Awesome. And by the way, there is a reason why when you are taking a flight in an airplane and the stewardess says, if the masks come down and we lose pressure in the cabin, make sure you put your mask on first
Yes.
before you help the child or someone who's acting like a child next to you. Because you can't do anything if you can't take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Yep. For sure.
So that is absolutely the key to, and that really is the key to life. Take
It
care
is.
of yourself and everything else will fall into line.
Everything else will fall in place. I agree. That's a good positive note to end on.
Absolutely. I should give you a rose every time you say positive. Aundrea DeMille has been our guest, and go get her book, which is it racism?
Yep.
And by the way, you said it's pre-sales. Has it been published yet?
We're a little delayed with the publishing. So yeah, we're pre-selling right now. Like there's such a supply and demand happening in every area, and paper is one of them. Just like we can't get lumber, we can't get material to build, and so it'll be out soon. It'll be out this spring for sure. So we are definitely taking orders.
It is sitting on a barge in the Los Angeles harbor. Is
Probably.
Aundrea DeMille, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And if you wait right there, I got to do this. I'll be right back. Thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of kmmedia.pro. Please visit our website, oddly enough, named kmmedia.pro, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to each other because each other's all we've got. We'll see you next time.